Welcome to the Continental. We hope you enjoy your stay.
Welcome to the Continental. I'm your host, Adam Mack, and I'm welcoming you back after a little bit of a hiatus from our podcasting because I had to do a little renovation to the hotel. Nothing around here. It's just, sometimes in your duty as a husband and a father, you're tasked with the insurmountable duty of painting shutters. And I'll tell you right now, I will not be doing a podcast about painting shutters anytime soon because that took me far longer than needed to be. Although thankfully, my wife appreciated it. But that explains my absence to this point. But we are back and we have an excellent episode for everybody here. And we're trudging on new topics we haven't crossed just yet. And it's one near and dear to not only my heart, but the hearts of our guests today. And we're talking about comics, specifically about our golden age of comics that we've hit upon in the last 10 to 15 years. Yep. You might not like the words MCU or DCEU or DC Animated Universe, but for anybody who lived the life of a teenager growing up, running to the comic book store, getting that latest comic, seeing what's been going on, waiting for that next weekly edition, seeing what cliffhangers awaits, seeing how the characters change or sometimes die. This is our golden age. And as many people say it, guess who runs the world now? Yes, geeks run the world. But to talk about how it's come to this and what it means to us to have this golden age, we have two of our most distinguished returning guests. Honestly, I should just call them co-hosts of the show because, honestly, I think they've been on for more than 50% of the episodes. So I'm willing to just change the hosting protocols of this podcast. But we have Rod and Jay, family from the beginning, and their family supporting us onwards. And I'm thanking both of you for joining us again to talk about the comic book movie universe. Thank you very much. Rod, Jay, welcome to the pod again.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's I'm glad we got to this. I know we've been talking about it for quite a while, and comics is near and dear to our hearts, and it's been something that we have all grown up with. And I think I want to hear more. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear the why. So before we get into the guts of this podcast, I wanted to understand, and I'm thinking the audience wants to know, what about comics interests you, and what has brought you through the years to still loving it today and loving seeing it in the movies. So maybe I'll start with Rod, since you are the elder statesman here at the Continental. Elder statesman in terms of visits, so don't worry about that. I got respect. I would say, so Rod, tell us your story. What about comics? How did you start off with comics, and what do you like about them?
Yeah, I don't really remember how I started off, but I know it's always kind of been there. I know walking to school, usually when I was a kid, I used to get bus money to, get to school because I had to take a bus to get to, surprise, 8-year-olds allowed to take the TTC by themselves. That wouldn't happen nowadays, not anymore. But instead of taking the bus, I'd walk and spend that money on comic books. I'd walk into this convenience store. It's smoke filled. Everything smelled like cheap cigars. And, you'd see that new issue of Avengers or X-Men and you had to have it and just, and it was the stories. I mean, the art was cool. I wasn't really in the art kind of guy, but the stories really pulled me in, and it gave you different perspectives on, life and the life out there. Like when you're an 8-year-old, you don't really, see much out there other than what's in your little bubble. And it gave you, a different perspective. Like I remember reading this one Spider-Man story about the war in Ireland, like the NRA and all that stuff. Oh. And I was like, oh, I had no idea that was going on. And, it gives you a different, like nowadays you have the internet, so you can just see everything at your fingertips. But back then it was like, yeah, it was opening up your world.
Yeah, comics talked about a lot of realistic stuff. Like you think about the comics from the 40s and 50s and 60s, they're all pretty current to what's happening, right? Like some of the stuff like Captain America, it was a result of, World War II. Like they weren't messing around. Like the genesis behind, the usage of the Nazis versus Captain America, they're trying to leverage real life stuff, and it's just progressed with time. You can tell by the technology, right? you go from the rotary phones to like, flip phones and, touch screen. And now the comics are leading the way in terms of what technology looks like. So it's been a canvas of history. So and to your point, helping a child understand that it's been awesome. Yeah. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome. How do you feel about seeing all this stuff come to reality on the silver screen? Has it been exciting?
It's been crazy. I mean, I know seeing like certain scenes in the movies, like kind of makes you tear up a little bit because you never thought you'd see that. Like like that final scene from Endgame.
Avengers! Assemble.
Like everyone, like all those heroes on the screen fighting against Thanos. Like that's something that you would never expect. Like
Crazy.
Growing up,
Crazy.
It's crazy. It blew my mind that they were able to pull that off.
The story they told to get there, it was just, honestly, they made those characters real, and that's something that we're going to get to, but it's quite amazing. Jay, for yourself, Jay from Joe is the New Black, tell us, how did you grow up with comics? What is it?
It was this guy Rod who introduced me to comics. He was hardcore, and I remember I was coming along at first just to play Bad Dudes arcade games at his local comic shop, and all the comic shops were close to Rod, or at least the main one was near him. And then when I would crash at Rod's is when, if we were lucky, we'd get driven down to Dragon Lady or Legendary Silver Snail back in the day, which were both big trips. But his local one was big because Rod, they'd hold newest issues for him. He was like, he was a baller. And I remember being like, look at this guy. He had him, they'd set aside his monthly, whichever ones he selected. And he's the one that got me into them. And then when I started collecting comics, that's what led me into art, because I would copy and start wanting to draw the superheroes. And I remember just drawing them all the time. And that was a big, I guess, influence in me becoming even artistic and drawing was the comic books for sure. And I remember, it was just, that was the beginning.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's some life-changing stuff, man. And the fact that it helps you see, that's another example where comics just influences the creative side of who you can be, and brings out the art of the possible, not only just in the actions that are happening in the comics, but just, the artistic aspect of it itself. And that's pretty amazing. My story is a little more benign in the sense that I think for me, I've had one exposure, the main exposure. Well, okay, I have two or three, but the big one is, it's kind of just like plastered everywhere, if you can't tell, in my screen. And it starts and ends with Batman. I think part of it is the comic books, but back in the 80s, the Batman comics were a little bit less like story driven, and they were a little different, I would say. So I kind of got sucked into and I'll be honest, just the animated series for me, right? And the consistency of stories there, and the detective aspect of it, and him solving problems and not just worrying about like beating the super bad villain, and that kind of carried me forward. It's just simply a human being overachieving in everything through hard work, right? That was like the big influence for me, and it just carried me throughout. And it's also, as you can see from the background, I just carried it through my wallet as well. But I think we all understand that. We all understand that a little bit, right? Rod, Jay, you already said it, right? But Jay, to your point, you being in the entertainment industry yourself, what do you make of the last 10, 15 years of this golden age of comics? I think, and Rod, feel free to jump in here. Do you feel it's been a positive effect to the movie industry to have comics take over such an emphasis in mainstream movies? Because I know there's still a ton of movies out there, but I'm sure you've heard some of the opinions from like Martin Scorsese or Bridget Fonda and some of the other familiar Hollywood patriarchs and matriarchs who have said that sometimes the comic industry has not necessarily been good for Hollywood. But what do you think about the golden age in general, from your perspective?
I wish I bought Marvel stock and DC stock early, even Sony. But as a comic book fan, I think it's been an amazing couple decades for sure. Yeah. But as a movie lover, I could see why even Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were also talking about how there's either the movie that's made for nothing or there's the $1 billion, $100 million comic book movie, and those seem to be the only big movies being greenlit, those types. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of a cinephile, I feel like some stuff gets lost. But as a fan of it, I'm happy that superheroes are getting primetime exposure, you know what I mean? And not if it's all good, you know what I mean? It's not like every comic book reboot on Netflix and thing worked out. There was a lot of bad ones, and but it's still nice to see for sure.
Yeah, I like to there was some hiccups, and hey, we can we don't have to debate about it here, but Marvel, talking about stocks, they literally took it down to the penny stock. They put all their chips into Iron Man at the very end, right? That was Marvel before they were acquired by Disney, and they just struck gold, right? Those first two Hulk movies, and even the one Hulk movie that was supposed to be the starting of Phase 1, didn't do well. Norton did not do well, right? It just didn't work, and it took Iron Man, who wasn't even considered an A-lister at the time, to really break through, and it's changed everything. It could have just fallen flat on its face, and there would have only been the stuff like the Batman series once every couple of decades to fulfill anybody comic books desire. So I think from a creativity standpoint, and not to get too much into it because it's more about just our overall enjoyment here, but I think from a creativity standpoint, what I've seen that's been interesting, and I think this is something that I heard Jim Lee talk about, the DC lead creator, is that it has the heavy interest in comics has created more interest and diversity in that industry than ever before, and opened up possibilities. Heck, Jim Lee, he's the head creator of DC. That may not have been a possibility a long time ago, but he got a lot of recognition to his name because everybody loved his artwork and his stories, right? For Batman and X-Men from before, right? And I think it's opened up a lot of possibilities from a creativity standpoint, and their movies themselves, which we're going to get to. I think some of them, they've opened up the possibility for lead characters who are people of color, right? Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. He did he led the charge. I think Simu Liu said himself. I think Chadwick, became his stepping stone to making that a reality. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to those art of the possible. But it's there's so many things going on, and I think it's nice to see. It's nice to see picture turn to reality. And honestly, the technology just makes it worth it now. Some of the stuff looks real. I could almost believe it. Yeah, man. Okay. So no, it's good to know, and I suffice to say, I think for all of us, it's made a huge impact on our lives, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's to come in the movie industry for comics. Everybody has their own phases coming up and their own plans. Maybe DC will come back with Mr. Zack Snyder changing things up. But until this point, I think we should get to the meat of what our podcast is about today. And today's podcast is about what are your top 3 comic book movies in the last 30 years. Okay, I'm gonna stick with these rules for the last 30 years.
30. That's gonna adjust my picks. 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years brings us right to the 90s.
It's just
yes.
90.
Yeah, from 1990 up. I don't need none of this like Flash Gordon stuff. I don't need none of this.
I don't know.
No,
I
Christopher Reeve. No,
I have
Christopher Reeve.
Superman as one of my faves, and it's a 78.
It's tempting, but he was unique into his own. He deserves his own Hall of Fame, I would say. Speaking, I know this is going to be side note, if we ever go to New York again, we have to take the comic book tour. Have you ever?
I didn't even know there was one.
There's a comic book tour?
Yeah, Rhea found it, and it was wow. We took it like 2 years ago. I think it's an independent, right? It's just somebody who knows everywhere in the city where comic books were made, movies were made, and they have a lot of cool history. So one of the things that I actually didn't know about, which was really cool. So Metropolis, the Daily Planet, it's there, like that lobby. From the Christopher Reeve movie, but then they go into the whole history behind it, where like I'm sure I don't know if this story is pretty common to the people out there already, but like nobody believed Christopher Reeve was good enough to be Superman, and he was one of the first to like basically say, no, it's unacceptable. I can do this role, and he literally just jacked up, like massively, before the filming of the first Superman. And so when he put that uniform on, everybody was like, whoa, that's actually real. It's just like, he was a skinny dude originally, right? And he just he was the original groundbreaker of, no, I'm going to make my body look like the character, because there's obviously canvas associated to it, right? And that's my first probably movie where a superhero come to life was just like, as a kid, I'm being like, that was my fave. You know what I mean? And he was that hero, like synonymous with that. He couldn't escape that role after that. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he was Mr. Superman, right? Like, just his demeanor, his personality, even off the screen, right? Like, he'd be like, yo, you're just like Clark Kent, dude. Just put on the glasses already. You're just like the humble, chill guy, right? So it's, no. He deserves his Hall of Fame to his own.
Okay, I'll switch it.
Yeah. No. We gotta draw some lines here, because that would be in a lot of people's top three for sure.
Guaranteed. That's Hall of Fame status.
Yeah, that's he's already Hall of Fame status. There's no debating it, right? Just because your point. So starting from the 90s onwards, and any movie goes. Any rating, it doesn't it could be PG all the way up to R. Any rating goes. And what I would like to see you do is we're going to do our top three. We're going to do a little bit of a round robin. So we'll start with Jay. We'll start with you. So for example, when we start with you, you'll say your first movie. You can start with the third best movie of your lifetime, and from the last 30 years. And Rod and I will say if it's on our list or not. If it's on our list, we'll say what position it's in, or if it's the same. Mm-hmm. And if it's not on our list, we'll just debate. So if it's on your list, we'll just reminisce about it. And if it's not, if it's on one of our lists, but for example, if it's on my list but not on Rod's, we can still debate. So either way, we'll have some lively discussion. I'm kind of curious what's going to come out of it. There's been actually so many. The good thing about this discussion, there's been so many movies. I can't even imagine what's going to be on this list. And I have a feeling there's going to be some, divergence here. But hey, that's the beauty of comics. It's everywhere. So I'll say this. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you very much, guys, for joining it. So let's get the ball rolling. So first up, Jay. What is
this one might be a big surprise.
That's what we wanted.
It's from 1994. Not a big surprise if you know me, but The Crow.
I see you have made your decision. Now let's see you enforce it.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is Brandon Lee's. Everyone knows he died filming the final, and it was one of the first films where they had to rely on CGI to finish it. And just a classic tale, and they've been trying to reboot it and remake it and add sequels forever. And I hear there might be a more mainstream reboot movie-wise coming, but it's definitely one of my faves. And I think I've been Brandon Lee from The Crow for Halloween like so many times in university till now. So that's my number 3.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about to go that. That's kind of like
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
yeah, that's definitely a divergent path, and that's actually good because it makes me think of other movies too that I didn't even debate about, and because I've kept it to a little bit of mainstream in my mind, but that one's actually really good because that I remember The Crow and the Spawn, like the additional follow-ups, because they did I think 2 sequels, I believe. 2 sequels. They got some really trippy stories. And then they also had like the TV series, which I actually watched. Actually, I kind of like the TV series.
I watched this TV series too. Yeah.
I really like the series. But what was interesting to me, actually, if I think about it, is the culture it created in itself, right? Like we talk about like comic book culture or cosplay or anime culture, but that was part of like the goth culture in itself, crossing with comics, and it created a lifestyle to its own. And, besides the fact that you're talking on a whole nother description of like next, the afterlife and all that kind of stuff, and the possibilities that surround that to a kid, that's some pretty powerful stuff. And obviously the history with Brandon Lee and his father, Bruce Lee. Yeah, that just like adds huge volumes to that one. And I thought that was a pretty good movie. I remember seeing that when I was a lot younger, and it was kind of like it wasn't a martial arts movie that had a story. It was a story that had martial arts. You know what I'm saying? Like where his character was an athletic, strong character, but it wasn't what drove the story. Which I mentioned again, for somebody of like mixed person of color, that's pretty cool. If you think about it, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Wow, I like that one, man. You start off that one with a bang, and yeah, I'm surprised they haven't rebooted that. That's pretty awesome. Rod, any thoughts about The Crow?
I can actually barely remember the movie. I know I watched it, but yeah, it doesn't stick out in my head. But I do know I remember the significance of it. Like I know that Joel really loved it, and I know his love of Bruce Lee. And and Brandon is just his son, right? So it's like but I couldn't really speak to it that much, but yeah.
Oh wow, okay. So right off the bat, we're gonna have a pretty good set of lists here because we didn't have any overlap with that. So that's a good one, man. Next, so let's take the next one. Rod, for you, what is your top 3 movie, your third choice?
Okay. Let's see here. So yeah, going from 94 going up to 2019. Number 3 for me is
25 years.
Yeah, only 25 years. My number 3 is Avengers Endgame. It's again, there's a culmination of how when Iron Man came out. Was that, what year was that? 2000, 2004, 2005? I don't know.
2009, wasn't it?
2009?
Yeah.
I don't remember, but
Iron Man 2008?
Yeah, 2008, 2009. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a culmination of like 11 years worth of movies, from beginning to end. It's like I said earlier, like that fight scene at the end with all the heroes, that's something that you never imagined you'd be able to see on the big screen. It's it was crazy. It was crazy.
Even when they announced that they were going to do that, I was already amazed that they got away with making Avengers and Civil War. But when they said they were going to bring in everybody to this end game, I was like, how is this going to even look or work?
Yeah.
And that last scene is goosebumps. That whole that fight scene is crazy.
Those Russo brothers, it's just like, because they gave the amount of screen time they gave to every group was perfect, right? Like obviously the whole, I'm curious if they always had Iron Man being the end fight in their mindset for the whole storyline, because like Iron Man wasn't like we said, Iron Man wasn't the go-to person, right? It's Hulk started the MCU franchise, but like I'm curious if Iron Man became their de facto, like, okay, he's gonna be the one who sacrificed. But yeah, just the amount of, they gave everybody great screen time, everybody had purpose, everybody had impact, and like you said, I think we've all seen the recordings and the memes where it's just like, it's like over your shoulder, left side, and then
Yeah.
and then everybody, and then the theater going, it's
crazy.
like, I liked it a lot, and my only gripe is, I just wish they just did it in one shot, rather than making us wait like Infinity War,
The 2? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and then Endgame. And it's just like,
That would have been a long 6-hour sit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
it would have been really, really, really long. Like, you needed that whole like 5-year, loss of pain, and like it's like, now that I think about it, it's like the reverse of what happened with Game of Thrones, where spoiler alert, but this is the internet. If you don't spoil this already, I don't know where you've been sitting. But like how Game of Thrones, everybody complained where Daenerys turned bad in like 2 episodes, where it's just like there was no build up, right? There was no like progression towards that evil. This way is like
way too fast.
It was like a whole movie of pain, basically, right? So
yeah, I when we nullified Superman, this would have moved into number 2 slot, and I remember leaving the theater not loving it. I remember thinking incredible things, but not liking. I guess I'm old school where I want to feel good leaving a movie, and I didn't feel good leaving this movie, even though we, quote unquote, won. The death of main characters, sorry for the spoiler, was a big downer for me.
Yeah.
And as much as I want movies to have realism, I don't want my superhero movies to have that, But kudos on them for surprising us all with these. And I thought a lot of it was unneeded. I don't know. I felt like the whole well and sacrifice was forced with the Scarlet and Hawkeye. I thought that was forced. I didn't like that, and I didn't like. I like giving Captain a whole lifetime of love and then coming full circle, but it didn't sit right with me either. The way they wrote it at the end. Who else? Cap was gone. Like, I don't know. It seemed to ruin my vibe.
Yeah. Well, if I had I think similar to you, it didn't, for me, it didn't make my top 3. Part of it is more so around the fact that its impact to me was, like you said, Rod, it's accumulation of events. Yes. But because there was accumulation of events that got there, not even just for Marvel, but movies in general, there was some that were impacting to me more. So that was my
it didn't make your top 3.
It's not in my top 3. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not in my top 3 at all. Not in my but I would say, I think to your point, Jay, the Captain America sequence, I didn't like that either, in the sense that it kind of artificially ended his arc within that universe, which it's just like similar to the Scarlett Johansson, to be honest, as well. Like it artificially ended those characters to me in the movie, and like that's not how the Marvel universe has been. If you look at all the movies they've had, nobody's like I think the only time where they really played up where they really crossed emotional barriers to me in any of their movies was Guardians of the Galaxy, where Quinn and his mother, and how basically Kurt Russell's character basically just like played his mother, and then like he had those recollections of his mom dying and something like that. It's like, you basically killed my mom for just to test out your theory. But other than that, I'm like, they're pretty, as you say, pretty straightforward, and they kind of went around that a lot in this one. But to me, like you said, I think the Captain America one was really one that was odd to me. I didn't like the Tony thing. Was like, I think because they alluded to that, it was like, okay, it was gonna happen. But the Captain America one to me was odd because I get it, but I'm like, yeah, you just wrote his character out. I was just like,
It feels like they didn't serve the story. They were just contract negotiations that went though.
Yeah.
They had to.
Yeah,
So, but then don't do it. Like, have them continue, but then have someone either take their role or don't feature them in the new ones. But
yeah,
for me, it was, all right, Downey Jr. doesn't sign on, so let's kill him. But I don't like that kind of writing. I like serve the story, not the actors' contracts shouldn't have anything to do with it.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's why I was always like, what the F? But
Okay. Okay. So
what's your number 3?
my number 3. So it's 3 unique ones. However, I will say it's not as unique as you would think, because my number 3 for my top 3 is actually Marvel Avengers, but on a much smaller, on a scale similar to Endgame, but in terms of the first time, it was a wow. Okay. The reason why it was a wow to me was, I'm going to be honest, and it might not be the opinion of everybody who listens to this podcast. I didn't really enjoy the first phase of Marvel's characters. There was like Iron Man, fine, cool, right? But Thor 1, I didn't really enjoy. Captain America 1 was like, it seemed a little like,
Too slow.
Slow and a little bit disjointed to me.
Yeah,
And
it was a retread. We've seen that before.
like that same concept to me. I didn't even, this seems wrong to say, but I didn't even watch Hulk, the Norton's Hulk, okay? Because I remember watching the Ang Lee one, which I should show some love, but I was just like, I saw that Eric, what's it called?
Eric Bana.
And I was like, man, Hulk just does not have a character that speaks to me. It just isn't. Right, so I didn't watch the Norton one. So then there's Scarlet. The Black Widow didn't have a character, have any movie, which is they should have rectified that right from the middle. Hawkeye didn't have a movie, and
Rightfully so.
Yeah, okay, Hawkeye. Yeah, that one is like the Black Widow is way more interesting character, and. So I was like all these characters, and then obviously Loki didn't have any previous exposure, right? Samuel L. definitely much great character to follow and watch, but it literally became just for me. It was like, okay, I'm going there to watch Iron Man and Samuel L. or Nick Fury, but then the way. And this is the time. I'll give Whedon credit. The way he put that movie together to bring them together quickly, didn't drag them out, to work out their differences, and then honestly, Tom Hinsel, doing his Loki, what really helped bring that villain together. It wasn't Thanos. It was Loki kicking, like just being like, a pretty badass bad guy compared to Thor 1, and forcing them together, and then obviously. The culmination with Coulson getting killed. We could talk about his show later because I really like his show actually. And then that one scene in New York City, like in front of Grand Central Terminal, Grand Central Terminal, where they're all looking up and the Chitauri are floating around.
360 camera.
360.
Yeah.
That's forever, right? And I will say that really made Marvel movies real to me. Like everything, they used everything. Like the whole Hulk get mad, Hawkeye with crazy accuracy, Iron Man doing his shtick, Thor was way better, 10 times better in Avengers than he was in Thor 1, 10 times better, like just character wise. Right. And then them, pissing each other off and then coming together. It was like, I really liked it. And that was like, okay, sold, done. Marvel Universe. You got all my money for the rest of your movies. All my money. Anyway, so that's my movie. That's my number 3 movie.
Good number 3.
Good number 3.
Yeah. That's, how did you guys feel when you watched that, the Avengers?
Well, yeah, like you said, that was the first time that they got big names from each of these blockbusters in the same movie, and it worked well. It worked. I didn't know how it would work, but seeing them all, it felt like you felt like a kid again, having all these heroes. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it felt honestly, it felt real, right? Yeah. And it's honestly, after seeing that movie, I almost thought a helicarrier could be real. Okay, so that's our top three. Jay, you're up. What is your number 2 movie in your top 3?
Number 2, who do I have? What do I have here? No, the Avengers was moved to number 2, the same as you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome.
Sorry, not Avengers, the Endgame.
The Endgame. The Endgame.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good.
So Rod.
So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Rod.
Number 2? All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to find a theme with my list because I'm a Marvel guy. You're not going to find Batman on my list.
What are you talking about? If this wasn't the Continental, I would have to boot you out.
Look at me.
So number 2 actually on my list is Thor Ragnarok.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's number 2. It's I think that's like the movie that actually where the Marvel Cinematic Universe really like nailed down, I guess, their formula. I guess if you want to call it, because it had like all the the right sense of humor.
Hey, we know each other. He's a friend from work.
Had like, but there was like emotional weight as well in terms of his relationship with Odin, his dad, and his brother, and then the action as well with Hulk. And this was one of my favorites as well because of the one of my favorite comic book stories over the past, I guess, 10, 15 years was the Planet Hulk story, where Iron Man boots Hulk to another planet, and he becomes like sort of like the king of that planet. So yeah, having Hulk in the arena and all that stuff, it was again, it's for me, it's more like a nostalgia, bringing all these stories to life for me, and I think Thor Ragnarok really did that for me, and then, like from the space, like it was like everything like a comic book movie that you wouldn't get like in the 80s or 90s. You got the space, you got the fighting, you got everything in there. So that really did it for me.
Yeah, the setting itself, super. The colors.
Yeah.
It felt like you're in a comic book for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like they did the full the full 100 yards, right? Like you said, the space was awesome. The aliens, the great job. You didn't even think they were CGI. The adaptation of Planet Hulk or World War Hulk, that whole arc was pretty good because it's not obviously bang on, but the concept of it was really cool, right? Where he's like the champ, right? Like that was pretty neat. The only
Jeff
thing.
Goldblum.
Yeah. He's. I just find him. He's funny though. Yeah, he's pretty hilarious.
No, I love him.
Yeah. He fit that. What's it called? He's called the Master. No.
What's his name again?
What's the character's name again? It's something about Grandmaster or something like that.
The Grandmaster.
Yeah, the Grandmaster, right? Like it's just he just has he played it well. It's like, see, this is where the art of acting is really needed for the art of comics, right? Because there is so much character to these characters. We know it because we read the comics. But people are not going to know that, right? You need people who can bring that stuff for real. And the only thing I didn't really ever get about the Thor Ragnarok is they never really explain how in the world Hulk just ended up on that planet. Like they just kind of said he just goes, I was flying away from Ultron because I was pissed at Black Widow for throwing me off a cliff, and then suddenly I was on another planet. I'm like, I was just like, that's a little bit of a stretch there. I'm like, there's no reason why you should be there. Like, not for your reasoning, but they tied it together nicely. But yeah, that was a pretty fun one, right? Like they did a lot of ad lib there, and I like the fact they introduced like Valkyrie.
Valkyrie, she's a great character.
Was it Tessa Thompson?
Tessa Thompson.
Yeah, she's an amazing actress. Like,
oh man,
yeah. I saw Ragnarok before seeing Westworld, and then
she's amazing in Westworld.
Yeah, it just snowballed from there. I'm like, damn, I was like, she's really good.
Thing stole the show though in Ragnarok. Taika Waititi.
Oh yeah,
as
the Rock, Korg,
as the New Zealander. He was funny. No, I liked that character. He reminded me of Murray, Flight of the Conchords' manager.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows of all time. But yeah, he had that same New Zealand accent, and he, I think, supplied a lot of the humor in that one for sure.
Yeah. He's pretty good.
Good choice, Rod. Good choice.
Good choice.
And if you like Murray, if you've seen the new Voltron cartoon, one of the voice actors, I believe, is the guy.
Oh,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I gotta check it.
Is it still on Netflix?
I think it's on Netflix. It should be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look that up.
Well, that sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say, what's your number 2 time?
Oh, number 2 time. Okay. So I'm taking throw a little back, and I'm taking a page out of your book, Jay, going off the beaten path. But I will say, from a movie perspective, this one really kickstarted for me. Like, Superman has a legacy, but this one, it's kind of weird because it's actually an R-rated movie, but it really made comic book movies a possibility. Blade 1.
Oh,
Whoa!
okay. Wow.
Blade
That was
1.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes. And
I was going to say barbed wire.
no, you can explain that to your wife. I don't know what you're talking about here. But yeah. Okay, wait, hold on a moment. No, but Blade 1, like Blade, Wesley Snipes, the precursor of it all. He's once again, RIP to one of the greatest in Chadwick. But I'll also say, Wesley really, pushed it out there to push comics to be a movie back in the 90s, right? He really he pushed for Blade, and he was the one pushing for Black Panther long before Marvel took it over, right? He was trying to do whatever it took to make it happen, to find like strong, African American or Black characters to take the lead role. And I thought that was huge. But honestly, as a kid watching that movie, I'll tell you what really got me. He made vampires made vampires seem real. Like that whole concept of, they're this hidden society of nightlife. They tattoo their human chattel, and he's just sneaking around waging this war as best he can. He's mixed like vampire, human, and he has all their strength, none of their weaknesses except for the addiction. And then just like coupled with his martial arts, it was awesome. And the graphics were incredible. Like, obviously the only thing that always got me was and this is with all vampire movies, by the way, how do you stab a vampire and they just disintegrate to ash? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like if they were that hot-blooded, they would have just disintegrated anyway, right? It doesn't make any sense that they turned to ash. But that's besides the point. Like outside of that, everything was so cool. It's I steal silver from all these. It's like he steals the watch from some of these humans, and the I forgot the lead actress. She's like, you steal watches? Like, yeah, I got to make silver bullets. Who do you think this stuff comes free? Right? It's not free. Which makes sense to me, and I thought it was great. Like the CGI was really good, and it was awesome. It was R-rated awesome, and I thought it really set the tone for me in terms of sci-fi goodness, kind of fiction, fiction-y goodness that could be real. It was like the first one that crossed the line for CGI and human.
Yeah, it was a really good, probably one of the first ones where martial arts played such a big role in the action sequences in a superhero film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, that was really good.
Yeah, he played it to a T. I honestly thought he was Blade, right? So.
Where is Wesley these days? Jeez.
Yeah, I know, man.
Wasn't he on the run for tax evasion or something?
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, he got probation or something like that. But yeah, he owed like $9 million, something like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen him since one of the Expendable sequels. He dropped in on, right?
Yeah.
The latest one. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to number 1. But before we get to number 1, I realize I should have asked this beforehand. Before we get to number 1, so everybody truly understands why we're picking these movies. Maybe let's start with Jay. Jay, if you can. I want you both to explain what is it you're looking for in a comic book movie that really attracts you. Whether is it the the action, the CGI, the realness, the characters? What attracts you to that? Saying, hey, that's going to be a top on my list of top comic book movies.
Rod?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, Rod.
Oh, sure. For me, it is really, it's a mix of things. One for sure is the story. If it's a story that I can relate to or speaks to me from a nostalgia point of view. Like I watched the New Mutants recently, and the story was just terrible.
Bad.
It was bad. I mean, I love those characters. Like I love Cannonball and Sunspot. And the way that girl from Queen's Gambit did Ilyana. I mean,
Magic.
If they had a better story or something behind them, it could have been a really good movie. But
yeah, it felt like they tried to market it as a horror film.
Yeah.
Which doesn't jive with superhero, and like even the way they seem like they wrote it, I'm not surprised it fell flat.
Yeah, and there's potential. There was potential in that story, even from like they're all in this sort of asylum ward together, and they could have done something better than what they did. But yeah, in terms of that, and as well as the action sequences, when you watch a comic movie, you want to have those big fight sequences, with believable CGI, and things don't look like you get that uncanny valley sometimes when they have these CGI things going on. So for me, the story and the big fight sequences are what that pull me in.
Yeah, effects are big for sure. For me, obviously story's got to be there. And if it's a hero I like, it's got to be the way they interpret and show his powers, because there's always subtle ways, even if you go through all the different Spider-Mans, there's ways that they kind of interpret his web shooters. There's all subtle things, and don't get me wrong, the first ones with Tobey Maguire I love just because there was never something done that well. Yeah. But these new ones are incredible. Homecoming and it's really done really well. And if you look at early ones, I think that's a big part of why those ones didn't work, is because the CGI was so bad that you're pulled out of it right away. Yeah. You're just like, oh, here's a cartoon guy stomping through the field against tanks. It's like you're pulled out of it. But if you're watching like the way they did Vision, you were like, wow, this is crazy. I forget that it's the guy from First Night, or what I mean? Like I think like that's Vision.
No, I'll dovetail onto those two comments as well. For me, it's the realness of the comic book characters, visually and character-wise. I think it's hard to do, right? To your point, like it's easy to make the big bangs, but then not give it the character because you don't understand necessarily the comics, right? Or it's easy to just give a great performance, but for example, in your case about Eric Bana or Edward Norton, if you don't have the proper CGI per se, and I love what you said, pulls you out of the movie because it just doesn't seem real. The way they did Mark Ruffalo with his Hulk was amazing. Like Avengers 1, when you saw him, like it felt like such a smooth transition when he says, it's like, that's my trick, Cap. I'm always angry. And then just smashes that Chitauri like monster, and it's just so seamless, and it doesn't feel like it's fake. It just suddenly he's Hulk, and it's and it's awesome. And but it has to have a certain amount of connectivity to the comics to feel real, and it's not easy to do. And it's not easy to do, and it's gone better because the technology's gone better, but also. To both your points, the actors who are playing them are incredible actors. They like study that stuff up, right? Like you remember, I think that story about Benedict Cumberbatch and him, like he didn't really know the character. He literally went to the comic store during filming to continue to read up, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, right? Like they take that stuff seriously, right? And that's important stuff, right? I'm not saying no actor could do it. Like they can all do it, but it just goes to the gravitas of it that they brought the character to life. So
yeah, that's why I argue that I don't like Hawkeye, because I don't like that actor. Because he was bad in all the Bourne Identities. He was bad in The Hurt Locker. He was.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner is just like a non-charismatic actor for me. Like I'm rooting against him.
Well, and I don't think his backstory in the movies, at least, does.
It's not even explained or fleshed out at all.
Yeah, like in the comics, he doesn't have a family. At least to the extent
all of a sudden he's a farm guy.
He has a farm guy, and he has 2 kids and a wife, and that didn't really pull me in either.
Yeah, and he's got 2 kids and a wife, so and it's just.
And you're gallivanting around the world.
No, I liked his backstory in the comics where he like grew up in the circus. And swordsman took him under his wing and all that stuff. And that's how he became like the Hawkeye, because of the
circus,
shooting bullseyes in the circus. It's a comic book story, but it didn't translate, I guess, to the movie sort of.
Like they made it an innate ability of his to hit anything, even though he's like supposed to be human.
And we've had we've had good actors with the wrong, like look at Ryan Reynolds when it comes to the Green Lantern, or the first iteration of Deadpool in X-Men or Wolverine. Mm-hmm. That was terrible, right?
The adaptation was totally off key, right?
It was like they just created this weird version of Deadpool that was like, just bad.
Ryan Reynolds killed it. He killed it. That's him now. No one can like distinguish Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool anymore.
Deadpool, no, because he gave him his own character. It was fast-cracking Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and they took it to the next level. Whereas Green Lantern, and they may have had all the money for the CGI, but story wasn't there, and
well, his personality too is almost too much, right? Like he was Deadpool in a Green Lantern uniform. He was basically Deadpool.
And he was trying to be the same, because Ryan is Ryan, which is the same way Keanu is Keanu in all his roles, and Ryan is Ryan, but you want him to be him. He's not like a Leo who transforms, or like Christian Bale that transforms, or Heath Ledger. It's you want him to be him.
Maximize.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like Keanu's doing Keanu no matter what he's doing.
And also to your point about if the CGI is not great, it kind of can ruin stuff, as well as the story. Like the best example of that happened to me is still a recent one, which is like to show that this golden age isn't infallible, is Suicide Squad, right? Suicide Squad, like the bad guy in it was all 100% CGI, like not the Enchantress, but like her brother, right? And then even Enchantress itself, it didn't like, the storyline didn't make sense to flow into that. It's like if she had the ability to, stop Amanda Waller from torturing her so quickly, then why didn't she just do that, right? Like she suddenly became this all-powerful super witch, and
so many holes in that story.
And they could have did so much. Like the beginning I thought it was good. Like the character, they grew the characters. Characters were interesting. They're bad guys, and they didn't even go CGI with the bad guys, right? Like Killer Croc was all makeup, which was incredible. And then
there
just
was some stuff,
There was some stuff, but then they shit the bed with the bad guy. Excuse me.
But then when you had characters die in that, you didn't feel for it because there was no emotional connection.
There's no weight.
There was no weight, no investment in any of those characters. I liked Will because no matter what Will does or what Margot does, I'm in. But I didn't care for any of the characters. You know what I mean?
I didn't. There was not enough connection, right? So, and then also the throwing in the Joker thing was kind of like, it was like that was a little bit of a miss, but. But like, hey, this golden age isn't infallible, and but they've hit more than they've missed. So, and that's why we've gotten to having a top one of our top 3 set of movies. So, without further ado, I want to hear what your number 1 comic book movie of the last 30 years is, and we will start with. Let's start with Rod. Let's go. Hit us with your best one.
Number one. No pressure. Okay. Let me see here. one of the hallmarks of a good comic book or series is it's not the good guys fighting the villain. It's the good guys fighting the good guys. Like when Hulk meets Wolverine for the first time, they have this epic drawn out battle. So for me, the number one comic book movie is Civil War.
Ooh,
'Cause
really good movie.
Even though there's a bad guy, there's who's it, Zemo. The crux of the story is Captain America versus Iron Man, and their fundamental difference. And again, the Civil War was one of my favorite comic book stories in the past 20-ish years. Even though the reason for their fight is slightly different, it still speaks to their differing point of views. Captain America's the Boy Scout originally, right? But then
Which was interesting, right?
Yeah. So in the movie, he takes the opposite side, kind of what the Boy Scout would do.
Yeah, good soldier, good soldier, right?
And then but actually, my favorite part of the movie is the big fight. They call in Spider-Man. And if you followed comic book movies for a while, the fight that they tried to get Spider-Man into the MCU for like so long because they sold their rights to Sony, because Marvel was such a shit company. They had to sell. They sold off Spider-Man. They sold off Fantastic Four. They sold off X-Men.
Yeah.
And they're only getting those back now. So getting Spider-Man into Civil War was such a huge thing. And when Iron Man calls out Underoos.
All right, I've run out of patience. Underoos!
And Spider-Man's there, it's like, oh my god, and Spider-Man's been like one of my favorite comic book characters.
That's why I was surprised none of them made your list.
Yeah, but I mean, my daughter's middle name is Parker. So it's Civil War was that's the top for me.
Well, they made a great I think, to your point, they made a great adaptation of the comic book arc. And that's what makes that movie great, right? Like, I know people at the time complained, oh, it can't be a great Civil War adaptation because it's only like 5-on-5 versus, it was like 30-on-30, right? But that's not the point. They're saving that for Endgame. And I think, once again, if they had to have brought Spider-Man in there because he plays such a big part in Civil War, the comic series. So it was great that they brought them in. Bounced around the whole Registration Act. That was some, really, that was really good. I think if you think about, that's probably their most accurate adaptation, outside of maybe Iron Man 1, where he that whole gets captured and has to make it in the cave. But that's a great adaptation, and I loved it. Yeah, that was really good, right? And I like the twist, the fact that they used Zemo to kind of they had used him to manipulate the whole event, because it just goes to show you, right? The good guys are fallible, right? Which I guess kind of leads into that whole phase 2 and phase 3 where Thanos is makes them fallible, right? So that was a good pick.
Yeah, especially after I felt like Captain America 1 was really slow and it kind of plodded along trying to tell the original story, and the story they ended up going with in the first one didn't really pull me in. And Winter Soldier, as okay as it was, but Captain America Civil War was obviously the best and came out of nowhere as another example of when you didn't think you could see that many heroes in one scene, that many celebrities in one scene, that many big names in one movie. It was dope for sure.
Yeah. But to your point about Captain America 1, that, I know this is not what we're talking about here, that eliminates that Captain America trilogy from being a top trilogy for me. I know some people have the Captain America trilogy as one of the all-time great trilogies. I'm like, nah, that's not.
No. First two were too weak for me.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
And it's the other thing too is it kind of makes Captain America, it makes you Captain America didn't have a successful solo movie at all, where he's the only one. Only Iron Man had a successful pure solo movie. All of them kind of Thor, not so good.
Well, even with Iron Man, I don't think the Iron Man movies were all that great.
No. Yeah.
Which I think
I
that's the
really like
weakness
them.
of the Avengers characters themselves. Like by themselves, the Avengers characters aren't all that interesting. Which is how it proved out in the comic books. Like people weren't just buying Iron Man comics by himself, or they wanted to see the Avengers, how they interact with each other, and
ensemble. Yeah.
ensemble. Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
I think Iron Man though is my favorite of the
Marvels?
the Avengers solos so far, for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of his own. Yeah.
Actually, you hit a key point. Like, if I think about it, I've said in the past to people that Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 are just basically a rehash of Iron Man 1. Like, it's the same
formula.
It's the formula.
But it works.
Somebody close he didn't know or knew something about him or was connected to his family and basically tried to kill him. And I'm like, I hate the fact that number 3, they squandered an opportunity to first off, you got Ben Kingsley. God damn it, man. Like, use him. Don't make him some hack, like,
That
fake.
was a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because even those first couple scenes where he's like, I'm the Mandarin, I will reign terror or whatever. At the time, it was like perfect. Okay, perfect's the wrong word to use because terrorism.
It seemed like the more of the correct note or way to go.
No, and not to be
They
like,
kept them.
yeah, okay, AIM is a longtime Iron Man bad guy, right? The organization, but don't throw that in there as the trick that he's the one behind everything, and he has these like semi-immortal people, right? And it's just like it kind of just the Mandarin, the Mandarin. That would have been
they ruined that character for sure.
Yeah.
But I think in the Simu movie, he's gonna be in there. I think not Ben Kingsley, but they're gonna touch on the Mandarin again and try to maybe redeem him.
I hope so.
Hopefully, because that was a badly written. But I do enjoy all the Iron Mans. But again, it's one of those where Robert Downey,
he earned his keep.
Such a good character and such a good actor and such a charismatic guy. The same way people see Ryan Reynolds and just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Robert Downey is
Tony Stark. It's like he might as well change his name.
I am Iron Man.
Yeah. The only thing better for me with Downey Jr. is I enjoy him as Sherlock more. But they're both neck and neck. But all the Sherlock Holmes ones are incredible.
Actually,
yeah.
His take on Sherlock was really good.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
shout out to Guy Ritchie on those.
Shout out to we'll do a novel podcast maybe one day, non-fiction novel podcast. That was a good one. But that one's a good one. I really like that one. Comic adaptation wise, honestly, can't think of another one outside of an origin. Actually, like just a middle of the road movie, like a random comic book adaptation. That was probably the best one that kept the closest within a 2-hour movie.
Within.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Rod, for your list. All right, next up, Jay, what's your number 1 movie?
Number 1 will have to be from 2008, Christopher Nolan, The Dark Knight.
Oh. We got
I was waiting for that to come up.
Keeping that, I didn't hit that yet.
I knew it was coming, one of them, and I guess you can't argue that is the best one. I thought you were going to choose Batman Begins at one point just because it was a whole restart that started everything. But Dark Knight has got to be the best.
Yeah.
Just perfect. I don't know. I just think it's one of the most perfect comic book movies for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to steal any of your thunder. I agree with you. Like, for me, it's all about adaptation and the realness of what you're watching for a movie, comic book movie that is, and how do I like it? That one crossed the line between just a comic book movie and a movie that's from a comic, right? Like it took the comic book character adaptation and nicely made it to an on-screen experience. I think I would have said Batman Begins, or even honestly,
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises is great too. My issue with those are 2 things. The bad guys, they had an opportunity to use 2 iconic characters as well. Like these are iconic characters, and they kind of flopped on it a little bit. Like the
Liam
Ra's
Neeson.
the Ra's al Ghul thing. They should have just made him Ra's al Ghul in the beginning instead of that fake out and saying that it was
Ken Watanabe.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, come on, either Ken Watanabe is an incredible actor too. You could have used him as well, but they just kind of flaked over that because they didn't want to. I don't think he wanted to bring up the concept of the Lazarus pit and all that other stuff, right? And then Bane, which recently I think there's been some talk about, like Nolan talking about Tom Hardy's performance is understated, and I'll be honest, like the dialogue and the character's intelligence is top notch. The intelligence of
it was great. How can you act when you can't show facial expression?
And that's where I'm like, they screwed up, right? I think they screwed up. They shouldn't have went the morphine is the reason he needs the drugs and the face mask, right? They should have just went with the whole steroid infused venom approach. And because the key character about Bane was he's as smart as Batman, right? But stronger. So that's what made him super cool villain. Same with Ra's al Ghul. He's smart or smarter than Batman, and just as like martial arts driven. And like them twisting those characters around really hurt me because like from a comic perspective, I love like the Dark Knight series, like that story arc where Batman gets his back broken and he has to come back and kick Bane's butt. Right? I love Ra's al Ghul as being the ultimate, right? Where also his daughter is like the mother of his child, or etc. Like the something like that of Batman's child. But this is where the Dark Knight, I think, Heath Ledger's performance, him working off bail, but it's like they take it monolithically too, right? It's the two characters, Batman and Joker, but at the end, remember when Joker's hanging and he says, we're the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. We're going to keep doing this dance forever, and you just damn believe it. And it's just like, it's straight out of the comic books. It's like, he doesn't care about anything else on this planet, but just having fun with Batman. Like none of it. The money burns. I don't care about money. You guys suck. I don't care about people. I'll kill you all. I'm like, mobsters, who cares? Power, whatever. I'm going to kill the mayor. I don't care about none of that. I just want to see if you will kill somebody, or you will, do something against your grain. And you could feel it in Ledger's character. Like he honestly didn't care about any of that. And the last point I want to make, and I kind of went overboard. I still, it was just waiting to happen.
It is your fave.
I loved Keaton's Batman. Okay, not so much the whole Clooney Kilmer. They did their best with what they had to work with, but like what killed me about those movies is they took, like, if in retrospective, they did the one thing that Batman should never do. They killed everybody. Same thing with like Ben Affleck's character. Ben Affleck did a great job, but I don't know why they made him a killer. He killed everybody. And like when he's driving in that Batman versus Superman, he's driving around chasing the kryptonite, and he's like basically killing all the cars that are chasing. These people aren't surviving. There's no way. Those cars get a rocket to the engine and they explode in the air. It's like he's not even trying to pretend that he's not killing them. Right? And I'm like,
it's a darker Batman. It's a darker.
Yeah. But he would never have crossed that line. That's the whole point. Well, like once he crossed that line, it's done. Right? It's done. Right? Like it's like, you remember in The Dark Knight where he does that whole sonar thing? Okay. It's like, okay, I will harpoon all these people through the leg so that when the police fall, they're not going to die. They're just going to hang there. But I've calculated it that these guys will survive if I do this, right? Like, that's Batman. Like, he'll do whatever he can not to let anybody die.
Someone's a Batman fan.
No.
Just a little bit.
I like the Dark Knight series because it was the first time where they mixed in a more realistic Bruce Wayne that's a bit older. He's starting to feel the years of fighting, and not only before his back was broken, but just especially in the Bane one before he broke, he's just the wear and tear on his body from crime fighting. It's just like he's getting there, where it's like, where he's just like all scar tissue. But yeah, I like that part.
Yeah, it was real. It was like character driven. It was like a connected character arc. And that franchise or that trilogy made boatloads of money because it was a movie, like minus the whole concept of Batman. It was a good movie. It was just
incredible. Probably one of the best villains in movies of all time.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Heath Ledger.
Heath
Yeah.
Ledger, yeah.
I don't know, man. That dude, that dude,
Incredible.
incredible, right? Like the material, like think about it, right? Like at that point, the internet was up and running. Like it's so easy to like just get shredded because you're like, look at what happened to Leto, right? He tried to overinterpret.
Well, that's
Joker.
a hard act to follow.
Also you got to follow Ledger, and he did okay.
Yeah.
Like okay, he did okay job, but it's just
It's tough. You give that same
It's tough.
script and the same lines that Heath had to
Yeah.
any actor, and they just won't do with it what he did.
yeah,
You know?
right.
Yeah.
It's the mannerisms. It's the fact that you don't know his purpose. So anyway, amazing job.
So we
Well,
overlapped
I-
on the
yeah.
final. There's
I
one
like,
agreement on the
what's
best.
his Joaquin Phoenix's take on the Joker. I mean, it wasn't so much of a Joker movie as like a kind of
As
taxi
a
driver.
depression, as a taxi driver, a comment on mental
Yeah.
health and people that.
That was on like another like it's like if Dark Knight is like the center median between movies and like comics.
Mhm.
Leto was on the comics, like he just kind of took a
Pure
comic-y,
comic, yeah.
right? And then Joaquin kind of went toward more of the
Ultra realism,
ultra realism.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, talk about a movie with not much redeeming positive vibes at all.
No, you don't feel good after watching.
I don't go to the movies for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just because Titanic ends with some crazy heartfelt stuff, but the whole film is amazing before that. But this is just a downer from the beginning to end, and I'm just like,
Yeah. They took the concept of like, okay, let's just do a villain movie a little too far, right? Like I like that's why like the whole concept of anti-hero, like even like Margot.
well, like
Robbie
Logan's amazing.
Yeah.
Really good film, but it's not, and as sad as it is ending wise too, it's just the other one was like negative after negative on top of negative, buried in negative.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's not why I go to movies for.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't need to leave less entertained. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of why Endgame didn't make my top, because of the mixed negative vibes I got at the end. I'm used to feeling that triumphant, like at the end of every other Avengers movie except for the last two.
Well, and that's why I see like Dark Knight was cool, and I don't mean to bring it back to Dark Knight again because it's still awesome, but like they did the whole, they ended with Harvey Dent, he dies, but the purpose behind it was, you're giving the police purpose, right? Like it was like that. They end with that quote, the dark the night is darkest before the day or whatever, right? Like you need somebody to, like, they can't have the district attorney ruining everything that they've worked for. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna make the big sacrifice, not death, but I'm gonna make the big sacrifice to be your enemy, your fake enemy, and like, to be the righteous purpose and everything like that. And I love, man, that movie is awesome. It's Christmas time.
It was good.
I gotta go watch it again.
I know if we have some sticky parts. I wasn't big on Scarecrow, and I wasn't big on Two-Face.
No,
Not strong for me.
Aaron, what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. The character.
Aaron Eckhart?
Yeah, Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
Which sounds like
And
a comic
then,
book name, by the way.
And then the guy from Peaky Blinders, who always gets on my nerves, plays Scarecrow.
Oh yeah, he's in all the Nolan movies, right?
Inception,
It's
he's
same
like
crew, right? He's like a
Nolan.
Nolan staple. Yeah, I didn't like. He didn't really need to be in the Dark Knight, to be honest. Like he was fine in Batman Begins. Like his character was a little interesting, but like I thought he was pretty fitting. But yeah, he didn't need to be in Dark Knight. It was okay. Yeah, he was just like a throw. It's like they could have just kept it Joker, right? Like that beginning scene where he's like holding the mask. You don't know if it's him. You think it's just like his henchman. Man, that's just like bam. He takes off the mask, like bam.
That's a great beginning. And I remember before the movie came out, that was the trailer was just that scene.
Yeah.
Succinctly given, just those couple that beginning 9-minute scene or whatever it was. Incredible.
Yeah, and that was an ode to Adam West Batman, the Romeo Cesaro.
Did you watch those?
Which one?
The classic Bam Pow Adam West
Yeah,
billboard.
Oh yeah. I'm not. We're all dating ourselves a little bit. Yeah.
Those were classic.
Yeah.
Those are classic. You know.
Well,
I wanted anyone to wear the suits. Like I wanted any superhero in live action. You know. It's like Spider-Man in the Electric Company. There would be one mini episode within the Electric Company, and it was just incredible to see someone in a suit like it. You know. Crazy.
Yeah, it's you know what, it's evolved so much, and like but still, like going back to even those live action TV shows, it just makes you feel like they're real, and it's like it's possible, and it's always it's something we've always like you think it makes anybody, whether you're a kid or an adult, if you can see it, feel it, touch it, it just makes you think it's possible. And you know, the good thing about these comics, as you said, it always tries to end in a positive way, right? No matter how crazy that arc, no matter if it's like 6-month arc, like, you know, it'll find a way to have some kind of positive spin around it, right? There's a reason for all this, right? Maybe it's to reset comic universe or something, but whatever.
Whatever
the point
it is,
but there's a positive spin to it. Comics, in the end of the day, are positive. And it's great to see them in live action. I think we can all agree we are in a golden age, and we're still heading into a platinum age, because I think some of the movies coming up, they're really putting some light to some characters that have never been touched before.
I don't know which. I'm not looking forward to any of them, unless I'm missing something. I don't know. I'm not. There's no anticipation for me for anything yet.
I want to see.
To be honest, I want to get excited about something, and I want to see an interpretation that I like. They've dropped the ball on X-Men continually.
Yeah.
And like they've had the best actors. Like you've got
First Class,
all the best actors.
First Class, I thought was good.
First Class was not bad. But
the only thing with those X-Men movies was they're up against the backdrop of the MCU, and it just didn't compare, right? It's like it's hard to reconcile the two.
Yeah, they missed the gap. They tried to go super big with that whole like the apocalypse, and then Days of Future Past, right? And they tried to go super big, and they just kind of whoops, right? Like it kind of like it went from 0 to it went from 5 miles per hour to okay, I'm gonna take the character to 100, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like I was skeptic about Pattinson as Batman. Yeah, I'm bringing Batman back in, but
I'm interested for that.
Those trailers are pretty interesting.
I try not to watch the trailers. I haven't seen them because I don't want to spend. But when I saw him in Tenet, I was won over how now I could picture him in an action serious sequence.
Yeah. Oh man, Tenet's a good movie.
So I got into that. Speaking of a movie that makes you suspend belief and trip you out, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to a Hawkeye movie.
It's not a movie. I thought he
doesn't have a movie. He has a series with Haley Steinfeld. Steinfeld. That Vision, that Wanda Vision.
Is that still going?
That's in January coming out.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about
Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Yeah.
That was too late.
It's too late. I think in that movie they're going to introduce a new Black Widow.
Yeah.
A different version of Black Widow.
Yeah, I don't.
And then
see what else?
You know, like the first Asian Marvel superhero,
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, it's not a strong. It's not a strong. I don't even know about that character. It's not even a mainstream character that I would be excited for yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that just goes. Shout out to comic world. You need to work on your lead characters a bit, and I know you're working on it. Like your creative characters.
It also you're right. It does show you that the lack of diversity in especially when it came to Asian superheroes.
Yeah.
In North America, you know, when people are like Black Panther, amazing. I'm like amazing, but there's no Asian Black Panther. There's no Asian Denzel. There's no Asian counterpart because the Asian male in North America, especially the U.S., was
super typecast, right?
Was like politically disadvantaged for decades, and to this day there are still ramifications.
Yeah, well, like at least, hey, Henry Golding, I'm down to see Snake Eyes. Let's see what their twist on that is. You know, he's pretty optimistic about it.
He's one of the
few.
That's one of the most revered characters in my life. It's got to be Snake Eyes and the Storm Shadow, their brotherhood, and Snake Eyes is my number one.
They're doing a Snake Eyes movie?
Yeah, with Henry Golding, man.
No way. Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah, they're already dead in the middle of filming it, man. It's most of he's spoken like it's.
I just hope they don't drop the ball.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? But he said himself, it's a movie that has martial arts, not a martial arts movie. So
because he's not a martial arts guy. So
no, he's not a martial arts guy. So it's. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that one. That one is. But like going back to your point, Jay, he's like the only one from an even live action perspective that's getting that opportunity. So hopefully it paves the way. But if you don't have the material, it's gonna get hard.
We gotta first have the characters, and there is none.
You have to have the characters, right?
Yeah. Someone, I forgot. Someone asked me, "Is Prince Namor?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know. I think he's an Atlantean."
They're trying to shoehorn that one.
He's not Asian.
Yeah, they're trying to shoehorn that one a little bit. So it's
like, no.
It's like, come on, man. It's like you could have like Russian like superpowered people, but I'm like, you couldn't have in a country of in an area, not just country, like in like an entire region where you couldn't just have one.
Yeah, no. And I feel like it's got to be a reboot of a character the same way Miles Morales did to Spider-Man. Someone's got to turn it on its head and have a mainstream guy be an Asian lead. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So just create it yourself.
Not gonna push it, but Batman Beyond. No, just kidding. But it's hopefully it'll happen. Like it just needs a couple of those big wins, right? Like similar to like with when Wesley Snipes was doing Blade, he got it was successful, but even he couldn't get the green light for Black Panther, right? Until Marvel came around, right? Now Marvel's redoing Blade. Actually, I'm kind of curious to how their retake on Blade.
I'm sure it'll be good because as great as the martial arts was back then, the choreography is getting even better now. Mixed with the effects, it'd be crazy.
And I like the actor they picked, Ali. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Although
I didn't even know who they
picked. The guy from Luke Cage. He was
good in Luke
Cage. He was Cottonmouth in Luke Cage. From Moonlight.
Mahershala Ali, whatever. Moonlight, and he's great in House of Cards. It's like where I first saw him.
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali. Oh, that's good to know. But even if you think about, again, this is a sidetrack when it comes to Asians in cinema, but when it came to Bruce and outside of stereotypical kung fu or geeky sidekick IT stereotypes, or there's never been, like, even Bruce, when he was the star, was not allowed to kiss a non-Asian woman. And if you think about Crazy Rich Asians, I love Jet Li, the same thing. Aaliyah, they made it seem like it was a love story with Aaliyah for that film, and it was nowhere near. He barely spoke. He spoke barely. Yeah, and if anything, he was kind of dismissed as, you know what I mean? Like, but even when I look back on Crazy Rich Asians, it was really a beautiful movie, and I loved it because Asians were front and center. But again, it was still like, there's a kissing scene and he's a main, but he's not. You notice how it's just Asians, which is great, but I want to normalize where Asians have strong roles in context to their white Western counterparts. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where Black Panther can stand side by side with Cap and be running or whoever, but there's not that same thing for us yet. That's all.
Yeah, there's just the representation just needs to be there just to say, hey, it's possible, right? And I think, what's his name? Ray Park from Fresh Off the Boat. He said it best. Like when he was doing that movie with Ali Wong, the Call Me Maybe, he did an interview that I read, and he goes, basically treat me like a mediocre North American person, right? Like treat me like a mediocre white guy. because you're right now, like anybody who's a person of color gets relegated to whatever stereotype is currently present in Hollywood. Even for like African Americans, they still get typecast to a lot. It's only recently that they've been able to get even level set, right? But any person of color, like especially Asians, to your point, you get typecast, and you don't even get treated as like a mediocre, like a medium player, right? And that's like, you could be top of the food chain, like Henry Golding, and you still get treated just like a mediocre, white dude, right? So, but it's, and this is where Jim Lee is, I'm hoping, like he's stated it on the DC fandom that was this past summer. He had a great panel with some of these publishing houses. I believe one group in Asia, forgot what it was called, but he had a great panel with that, and he was like emphasizing like the growth and the pushing for diversity across the board, right? Men, but
it takes guys like him in those roles. Right.
Yeah.
We need
to push it.
We need studio heads now to greenlight, and we need studio heads that are of POC. But.
Like you to give that opportunity. Otherwise, you just default to say, and then they just make an excuse that it's about money. I'm like, nah, man. It's like the content will speak for itself, right? Like the content will speak for you. Write good content, it'll speak for itself. Ironically, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Hollywood saying, oh, maybe, comic book movies generate so much money, studios only make comic book movies. Well, that's because it's the content that's good that people want. You make good content, going back to your saying, representation, everybody is equal. Guess what? You're going to make a lot of money, right? And it's the opportunity is there. Just got to be willing to make that choice to do it. So anyway. True. This is I want to continue this conversation. We can definitely do it on another pod, because I think this discussion has whole new levels to it, and obviously for us it has so much more meaning, especially for the future generations. But I don't want to hold you. It's getting a little late, so I really appreciate all your time. Thank you very much, Rod, Jay. Really, it's as always such an awesome pleasure to have you here at the Continental. I love your opinions of the top 3 movies. I think I'll spend this little bit of a break to rewatch a ton of them. It's finally come up for some air, but it's great to hear. And in the end of the day, I'm also happy we're in this point in time. And so thank you very much for giving your opinions. I hope your opinions, drive people to see some of these great movies, and bring on some more comic book movies and bring up some more comic book content. So if you're listening to this, please like, subscribe, comment. Hey, anything we say goes. Remember, you can just let us know, and maybe we'll come back to it and give you some feedback of what your thoughts are. So hopefully you can join us at the Continental in the future. But until the next time, Rod, Jay, thank you very much for I enjoyed having you at the Continental, and it's always, as always, a pleasure to serve. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.